Noon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Brant, I think I'm going to depend on you to do a sound check for our speakers and agencies and our co-chair.
Sounds good. I know Mayor Strickland is already with us. How are you, sir?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
I believe we're supposed to have someone with USDA with us.
Yeah, Brant, that's me, Dennis Toddy, filling in for Roger or Doug, whoever was supposed to be here.
Okay. Yes. You will be going first, and then we NOAA.
Yeah, thanks. If I'm from the Midwest Center, we're supposed to be talking, and then I'm supposed to, this is Jeff Grusser from the Lower Mississippi River Forecast Center. We'll talk about the river conditions and stuff and where projections are.
Perfect. And then we have the Coast Guard. Is someone from the Coast Guard with us?
Yep, you got Captain Ryan Rhodes here.
Hi, Captain. Thanks for joining us. And I see the Mississippi River Valley Division from the Corps.
Yes, we're here.
Perfect. I think we are all good on sound.
All right, well,
Excellent.
Colin,
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
since it's 3 o'clock, should I go ahead and start?
Let me do a check on that, Mayor. 1 second. Mayor, if you can give it about 30 more seconds. I got
Sure.
folks still trying to get on, apparently.
Okay.
If you're just joining us, thank you so much. This is the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative Situation Room Call for the ongoing drought throughout the valley with federal agencies and partners. Please stand by. Do we have anyone from the cruise lines on the line? Anyone from the cruise lines?
Hi, Colin. This is Shelley Hartfield with American Cruise Lines.
Hello, Shelley. Thank you for joining us.
You have David Simmons from Viking.
David, welcome.
This is John Cook from American Queen.
American Queen, great. Excellent. All three. Fantastic. Anyone from the Waterways Council? Okay. All right, Mayor Strickland, I will hand it off to you.
Thank you, Colin, and thank everyone for joining us today. We're going to discuss the current low water emergency on the Mississippi River. I am Jim Strickland, Mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, and co-chair of the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. I want to thank everyone to be here. I would particularly want to thank representatives who are joining us from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, and the United States Coast Guard for joining us today for this important call to brief our mayors and our partners on this urgent situation facing our nation's most vital waterway. Currently, as everyone knows, barges are stuck on the river. In many areas, they are And in many areas that they're allowed to run, they're being forced to run lighter loads. Here in Memphis, we have recreational boats sitting in mud. And from my office, I can clearly see more dirt or sand or whatever that is than I've ever seen in my 30-something year career downtown. With little rain expected and worsening drought out west, the outlook appears troubling. The Tennessee Valley Authority announced this week that it will release water from Kentucky Dam on the Tennessee River and Barkley Dam on the Cumberland River in Kentucky into the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. Actions like these could provide temporary relief, but the long-term outlook is critical for our communities during this time. The mayors in this organization are no stranger to working together during difficult times, and we are so glad to have our federal partners on the line with us. To start things off, we have Dennis Toddy, the director of the Midwest Climate Hub for USDA. He is going to discuss the current drought situation and long-term outlook. We will have time for questions for all our presenters after all the presenters are done. So please hold your questions until all the presenters have finished. Mr. Toddy.
Thank you, Mayor Strickland, for the introduction. I appreciate that. Can I get a check as to which, are you seeing my full slides or the preview slides?
The preview.
Preview, okay. Quickly here. Okay, thanks for having me here. I am sitting in for some of my NOAA colleagues. I do sit in USDA. Obviously, agriculture is being influenced by the current Missouri River situation. But I'm sitting in this context for part of a regional partnership that we do, sharing information about current conditions and potential outlook conditions and their influence on a variety of issues. So we could spend a lot of time looking back at precipitation conditions, but the summarization of this is that we've been quite dry over a large area of the central US because the situation has taken a quick turn for the worst because of lack of precipitation the last 30 to 60 days or so. We do have dryness that goes back all the way through into last year. But you can see through the central part of the US, we've had, less than half of an inch of precipitation and more to the atmosphere as we're going along here. Because of that, as you would expect, we have very dry soil conditions. I've got here two different NOAA product, or one a NOAA product, one a NOAA product in the upper left-hand side, a NASA product in the lower right-hand side that are based, are percentile. Of soil moisture. Basically, the darker orange are low percentiles, near the dry on record, and the blue is high. And, they're a little bit different. That's why I showed you the two different products, but they both agree that all throughout much of the Missouri, Mississippi, and even a little bit of the Ohio basin now, we have very dry soils for this time of year. And just a reminder, that this time of year we typically have soils because we're at the end of the growing season. So we've extracted a lot of moisture from that time period. And this is the time of year where we need water on the ground to be refilling the soil moisture profile. And that's why, the rain that we have coming today is helpful in these areas, but it is only one step forward in the progress of trying to fix that situation. Okay, so last week's drought monitor, where we are right now, lots of through the central US. Just a reminder, consider drought is the D4 category. So the areas that are yellow are D0, which are dry, but not considered drought according to the US drought monitor. But I threw some percentages on the upper left hand there. the basins from the U.S. Drought Monitor of how much of each of these basins is in some level of drought. You can see, from the Ohio being only about 28% to the Arkansas white red being at 91%. So that's why this issue is coming to play. We don't have dryness in a few places. We have dryness in a lot of places. So that's why we're not getting much in the way of runoff in this situation. This week's map coming up now will probably reflect maybe a little bit of improvement with the rainfalls, but the current rainfall is only a step and really may not make a whole lot of difference in the larger scheme of things as we're looking ahead. Okay. What do we have coming up? What's looking ahead of us? I've got 8 to 14 day outlook. This had not updated yet, so this is yesterday's outlook. So on the upper left-hand side of being warmer than average over most of the region, most of the eastern 2/3 of the U.S. continuing on the warm side, puts us in the first week of November. Is this help? Yes, it's a help, but is it likely to fix anything? Not as much hope to at this point. Jump ahead for the 30-day outlook for the month of November. Now, this map and these slides and the next slides are going to reflect what we expect with La Nina conditions. The Climate Prediction Center, we're going to be going to the 3rd year La Nina. So a lot of these maps will very much reflect what we're expecting with La Nina conditions overall. So the left-hand side again is temperature. We have a better chance for warmer than average in the southwestern quarter of the U.S. Otherwise, lots of EC or equal chances means that there's not a lot of confidence as to what's going to happen there. We're probably going to see more cold starting to come down in this area. But in the lower right-hand side is probably the one thing people don't want to see is slightly increased chances for drier conditions continuing. Again, we are in the drier time of year, but so we're not expecting much anyway. But the lack of precipitation is concerning as we're going along here. One more map or one more slide here. Looking ahead, and now we're looking ahead for the winter, December, January, February. And these again reflect very much what we would expect in La Nina conditions. Upper left-hand side kind of are gone for most of the area, and we have increased chances for cold up in the northern plains, up in the upper Midwest, as can happen with La Nina conditions. Lower right-hand side, we have who's in the Ohio Valley, because the Ohio Valley, eastern Midwest, has a better chance for precipitation, for above average precipitation during La Ninas. So we do have some optimism that the Ohio can see some improved situations. Up in the upper Midwest, it can be more active, but we don't have a lot of confidence there. And then the upper Missouri can have a bit more of an active winter, but that wouldn't help us around until the springtime. And so we'll have to see how the situation goes related to those. And then just a couple of summary slides. Again, La Nina influence. Possibly more active throughout the winter further north, less active in the south. This drought recovery is going to be slow. We need numerous wet systems, and so far this fall, we have not had numerous systems, nor have we had wet systems. So while this one's a good one that's coming over us now, we need to have several more of these to have happen. Once is the potential, if we do get some cold with very dry soils, we could have some very deep frost depth conditions further north, and some possible structural issues in the way of freezing lines or some water main breaks that we should consider along that way. So that ends this part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toddy. And again, if we could hold our questions till all the speakers are done, we'll have 4 total. So next up, and I may mispronounce your last name, Jeff, but Jeff Graskell, at Service Coordinator Hydrologist at the Lower Mississippi River Forecast Center to discuss the forecast outlook. Turn it over to you.
All righty. All right, appreciate it, Mayor. I think we kind of got over the ideas of the reasons why we're at the conditions that we're at with the lack of rainfall that we've been seeing for quite a while now. We actually broke records from Memphis down through up to Cairo, Illinois last week on Monday, with some of the dips going below the 1988 levels that we had over 30 years ago. We are seeing a little bit higher levels currently now on the river and stuff, but we're probably about a couple of feet higher at Cairo than we were back earlier last week. And then at Memphis, we're actually seeing a little bit of a rise too, of half a foot to a foot from some of the just a little bit higher stages that we saw in the lower part of the Ohio River. So currently we're not getting any more record levels at this time, and the levels that we're currently seeing in the river now are actually above the 1988 levels. And so we're very hopeful over the next couple of days with this rainfall that's coming across with the cold front that Dennis has already talked about. They are showing about 1 to 2 inches of rainfall and maybe a little bit heavier rainfall in parts of Arkansas. Right now, our models are kind of seeing maybe another 1 to 2 foot rises associated with that rainfall that will be coming across the lower part of the Mississippi River over the next week. And then we do run some long range models that actually include 16 days of rainfall. And early indications right now are showing us that we may get a secondary peak in the mid portions of November. So what we're seeing, at least through a 28 to 30 day period of time, is that right now we see some indications of some higher levels than what we've been experiencing over the last week and a half from areas from Cairo down through Memphis. And then we're hopeful that low water conditions that we're currently
This
experiencing.
meeting is being recorded.
And that's all I had, and I will turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think we'll now go to Captain Rhodes with the U.S. Coast Guard.
Yep. Good afternoon, Mayor Strickland and other distinguished guests. Captain Ryan Rhodes here. I'm just trying to start my camera. It's going a little slow here. I'm the sector commander for the Coast Guard here in Memphis, and also the captain of the port for Memphis, Tennessee. There we go. I'm back up on the screen. So I'm just going to provide a brief overview of kind of what we ways that we have, and I'll just go over kind of what we things that were closures, types of that, the delays. But I'll go ahead and read this brief that I got, that I've been briefing everybody. Talked to some senators and some congressmen here lately, a lot of interest. And it's located on the bank of the Mississippi River in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee. Command to 6 inland tenders. Those are the buoy tenders. Catch duty, marine safety office, team, and a station Memphis, which the area of responsibility encompasses over 26 states, including the lower Mississippi, Red Rivers, and with 7 ports and 3 high-density population areas. October, the lower Mississippi River entered extreme for our Waterways Action Plan. Feet on the Memphis lows are being observed, the likes that have not been seen in over 3 decades. While small influxes of water are occasionally observed, the forecast for river levels is in steady decline. On the 17th of October, the Memphis gauge was at a negative 7.6, which surpassed the record of negative 10.7 in 1988. So, in the matter of fact, we've broken the top 3 records for low water levels along the river, the lower Mississippi River. Extreme low water conditions across the western rivers have resulted in 26 9,300 barges, which is their collective load that they were carrying. So 650 vessels and 9,300 barges. To manage this and prioritize traffic buildup in these queues that I just talked about, a marine transportation system recovery unit was stood up here at the sector with regularly scheduled meetings with local, state, federal partners to include the Army Corps, Lower Mississippi River Committee, LOMARC, which is our industry here, the River Executive Task Force. So currently we have two restrictions.
This meeting is being recorded.
In our AOR here on the Lower Mississippi River. Those are Redmond Bar between mile marker 740 and 745, which is slightly north of Memphis. They've got dredging there. We're running some southbound traffic. The closure time at that location was exceeded 172 hours for that restriction. Total queue that we had this morning was 53 vessels with 741 barges. The second one is Battle Axe, which is between mile marker 678 and 684, just west of Tunica, Mississippi. The Army Corps was doing dredging there. Total closure time exceeds over 200 hours restriction time, and a total queue count this morning was. So we're starting to see the vessel and the barge numbers. I know those are a lot, but here in the last week, earlier about a week and a half ago, we were seeing almost upwards of 3,000 barges that were on the side of the bank, the river bank, due to these restrictions and closures. So that's my presentation, and I'll stand by for the questions here at the end.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next speaker will be from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who are always great partners to every mayor along the river. But I did miss who's going to speak, so I'll just turn it over. I didn't hear the name, so I'll just turn it over.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cody Eckhart. I am the Deputy Chief of Operations and the Navigation Manager at Mississippi Valley Division. Just a few quick points to touch on. Bottom line is we remain confident that with our dredging operations, we can keep this river open if the water levels remain relatively stable in current conditions. We're tracking everywhere on the river right now. We have our authorized dimensions. I know there's been several groundings, and we've had to go in and dredge. Several of those groundings have been from barges that were loaded prior to the 9-foot restriction, so they're drafted more than 9 feet, and so they're coming through and they're grounding. Also, some of the towboats draft more than 9 feet, so that's been one of the issues that we're continuing to work through. We've got 4 dredges dredging on the Lower Mississippi River. They're called dustpan dredges, and there's only 4 of them exist. So 3 of them are ours, 1 of them is contracted. We use those on the Lower Mississippi River because they're self-propelled like a regular towboat. They can move out of the way of traffic. We can continue to move traffic while we are dredging. We've got 2 of those working. Well, one working at Battle Axe, one working at Redmond Bar, and then 1 working in St. Louis District, and 1 is down in the deep draft crossings in New Orleans to continue to allow traffic to move all the way to New Orleans. We've got cutterhead dredge contracted. That's typically what you see in your harbors along the river. We've got 1 currently working in Memphis Harbor. They're supposed to finish that on the 28th of October and then move into Helena Harbor. And then we should have another one working in Vicksburg Harbor starting on Thursday, the 27th. We also have 2 small mechanical dredges, which is basically like a backhoe on a barge, that are working in St. Louis District, at some of the smaller areas in that district in the St. Louis area. Starting on the 26th, we're going to have the motor vessel Gruget will be available to assist the Coast Guard with buoy placement. That's been an issue with the water falling and trying to keep up with moving the buoys in and out so that we keep good water marked. So we're going to be able to add that vessel to the fight to continue to try to move those buoys. Probably one of the most important things that we're doing is its daily coordination with the Coast Guard, the Corps of Engineers, and the navigation industry. Those are our partners that we're working, and they're helping us prioritize dredging locations, helping us determine where the buoy placement issues are, and then just share information because those are eyes and ears out on the river to let us know where we have issues, and that coordination will continue throughout this low water event. So, barring any questions, that's what I have.
Thank you very much. We'll open it up to questions, and if anybody has a question, just identify themselves, what city or organization they're from. Does anybody have any questions? If not, I'll get it going with a question. So, a National Drought Resilience Partnership, NDRP, has been established among the federal agencies to develop and equip the nation with a drought policy. MRCTI, our group, worked on this in 2013 and even got a National Drought Council placed into the 2013 Farm Bill. The Drought Council has been concentrating on the science of drought. The scientific portion of the nation's drought conversation is doing well and making progress. The policy side, however, seems to be a bit of a mystery to us mayors, and we don't know of any progress that has been made on the policy side. So first question is there news on that to report? Second question is, as we understand it, states cannot obtain a disaster declaration for drought. So are there any federal resources available for cities or ports negatively impacted by the river situation? So, and I'm not sure who to direct either one of those questions to. Y'all remember the old Carson skit,
Yeah.
Stump the Band? I think
That's right.
The band.
Yeah. Hey, Mayor Strickland, this is Roger Pulwadi from NOAA. And I just wanted to comment on one of those. I'll be your Karnak, speaking Johnny. Especially in the National Drought Resilience Partnership, there have been many activities going, and what we're trying to do, in fact, the person we're hoping could join us, Gloria Montano Green, who is one of the co-chairs, I'm the NOAA point person on that, couldn't join because of the pressures on the lower miss right now related to USDA. And so we're fortunate to have Dennis Toti. I think in following up with this meeting and the critical issues that we're seeing in the lower basin, this is really an opportunity to sort of re-energize that National Drought Resilience Partnership. It actually came out of a testimony that at the time, Joe Glauber, who was the USDA Office of the Chief Economist, and I did, which basically said, we can help provide the information of the kind you just heard, but when it comes to policy, it takes the agency leads and their partners with the mayors, the governors, and so on to be able to do that. We help inform the design of and implementation of those policies for the American people, providing the science behind it. It's an opportunity, I think, given the things that are going to take this particular issue that is in front of us. We've worked with MRCTI since the 2012 drought, which was the one, and the 2011 floods, then the 2019 floods. And that partnership is extremely valuable to us. I think it's time we pulled that together and said, look, there's been longstanding efforts. How do we move from just risk management to resilience? And when it comes to the information for planning, we work on the risk side, but I think it's time to re-energize that the stakeholder and partnership aspects of the NDRP. So bottom line, there's a lot of activities we can list, but I think the larger question of the governance requires the partners to get more engaged with us. So that's the 2 cents from my end. Sorry. And I'll send, I don't know if we have FEMA or whomever or DHS on relative to the state issue.
No, thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir.
If it's okay, we may follow up with you on that, but thank you.
That's perfectly all right. And what I will try to do is pull together some of the other co-leads on that, and then so we can have a meeting in which we can actually make some decisions. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from anyone?
Mayor, this is Colin Wellenkamp. Just had a question for the Corps that they might want to comment on, because one question we've been getting a lot from over the past 2 weeks is, hey, what can be done to release more water from the Missouri basin? And I want to make sure that the Corps folks aren't on the hook for that, because that does, I believe it requires an act of Congress to do that. They can't release water from the Missouri basin to control levels in the Mississippi without congressional intervention. I just wanted to offer that to the Corps, make sure that was understood correctly.
Hey, Colin, this is Andy Ashley with NBD. Yeah, that's correct. Currently, that is, Missouri system is not authorized to do that. We will do whatever Congress authorizes us to do. We will do. That's currently a function that exists at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Molly has her hand up. We'll go to Molly.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Molly Wolas, and I'm with NIDIS, the National Integrated Drought Information System, which is a part of NOAA. And I wanted to just briefly comment on a question that you had, Mayor Strickland, about the resources that are available, tying into some recent conversations that we've had at NIDIS in both the Midwest region and also in the Missouri River Basin. So this was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we had a panel of federal agencies talking about where resources are available for, not only agriculture, but outside of agriculture. And so there were some, we are going to compile all of that information, and from that probably have some more spin-off efforts of meeting with federal agencies to really talk through, making sure that communities on the ground and others know what resources are available from FEMA, EPA, the Bureau of Reclamation for the states that are within their region. So I know that some of that's outside of the Mississippi River, but I think it would definitely be relevant, especially as we look at the Midwest region in particular. So that's something that I can definitely keep this group updated on as we advance efforts here at NIDIS.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, Molly. All right, any other questions?
Mayor Strickland?
Yes.
Yeah, Mark Nichols. I'm the mayor of Lake City, Minnesota, up north of you folks. We're the birthplace of water skiing. But my question for this group, and I feel real fortunate to be on this call with all this expertise, is I anecdotally have noticed on the Mississippi River, we're the widest navigable part of the river, about 3 miles wide, 26 miles long, a noticeable drop in tow activity. But what does this mean for the northern states, where we do have pretty strong flow from our water basin in the upper area here, Minnesota? 2/3 of the Minnesota area goes by Lake City. What do you think that'll mean to us? Just a less tow activity, or if I get some input, I'd appreciate it.
Hey, Mayor Nichols, this is Captain Ryan Rhodes with the Coast Guard. So what I think you'll see is, obviously you'll see a decrease in traffic if it's coming from the lower Miss up to your location. It's got to go from here into Upper Mississippi Rivers AOR, which is there in St. Louis. I was a deputy sector commander there about 5 or 6 years ago. And so you'll see a delay in traffic heading up that way, and maybe a delay of folks pushing out. I mean, we're into harvest here, and harvest is going to run through maybe beginning of next year, first of next year, and So I think you'll see a delay there in transportation. I think you'll see an increase for costs associated with that transportation. Currently, the whole, they're not filling the barges up as much as they should. Only, I don't know, 3/4 full, whatever they're doing, that's their thing, but they need to get within those draft restrictions. But because they're not filling up all the way, the rest of what they were going to put in there has got to go into another barge. So barge prices, transportation prices are increasing. So there may be some scarcity of barges on the inland waterway. So those are some of the impacts and things we'll see, and you may see them up there in your location.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Captain. I do have one written question to me, and this is for the Corps. How are conditions? Oh no, actually getting two questions now. First question is, can you please have the Corps Mississippi Valley further discuss the dredging operations in Vicksburg?
Okay, hey, this is Cody Eckhart again. So currently on the main stem, the main line, Mississippi River, we don't have any dredging operations. Doesn't mean we're not going to dredge. We've got 2 dredges in Memphis that are prepared to come down if we do have an area on the Mississippi River in Vicksburg that becomes an issue. The Vicksburg district has surveyed several areas, and so far so good. We've got the authorized dimensions. They're continuing to monitor that. We got a report this weekend that the Vicksburg Harbor, we're starting to see several humps in the harbor that were affecting its authorized dimensions. So we've got a dredge coming in Thursday to start trying to work some of those humps and knock those down to maintain the authorized dimensions in the Vicksburg Harbor.
All right, thank you. I got a couple more questions in writing. The next one is, how are the conditions in the St. Louis area where we have the Illinois, Missouri, and Mississippi rivers?
All right, hey, this is Cam Rhodes again. It's not my area of responsibility. I'm a little familiar with it, and I talk with my counterparts both in St. Louis and in Louisville, Kentucky, for the Ohio and Tennessee rivers, as well as Captain Andrew Bender, who's up in St. Louis, who deals with the Mississippi, Illinois, and Missouri rivers. So I know they've had placed draft restrictions there. There was a marine safety information broadcast, I believe they put out that there was some draft restrictions. I don't know exactly what they were, but I want to say 9 feet, 9.6, or somewhere around that. Those were some of the draft restrictions that they were seeing in those locations. It's a little different up there north of Chester into St. Louis. You get into what's pooled water there, it's water controlled there. And south of that, you got the raging Mississippi where we take care of. But that's as much as I can do without having Andy here.
Yeah, this is Cody Eckhart. I'll chime into that. So yeah, the 9-foot draft restriction, or I believe it's a draft advisory that the Coast Guard has out in the Memphis AOR. We're tracking everything good on the Illinois right now. We're not tracking any issues on the actual Illinois River. And so we've got four dredges working in St. Louis district, and we're not tracking any closures. So, I think right now we're okay in St. Louis district. Again, we're continuing to monitor it. Just the districts are, for any hot spots or any reports. So far so good.
Yeah, and kind of from NOAA's end too, that's exactly what the Corps and the Coast Guard's been saying too. It looks like we're kind of bottoming out around -3 feet there at the gauge at St. Louis, and we're with the rainfall that we're expecting over the next 2 days or so, looking at getting up about -1 here for late this week, and then kind of hanging above that -3 level at least for the next 10 to 14 days. So actually kind of maybe some more improving conditions there if the rainfall holds true and we do get the rainfall across that area.
Thank you. I have a couple more written questions. Mayor Stain, did you have a question?
No, I'm just commenting on the rain with my fingers crossed Otherwise, I'm gonna have to start running camels out of the city of Kinswick instead of boats.
All right, I have a couple more written questions. I can't tell who this next question is from because it was from an iPhone, but it says, how are cities impacted that depend on the river for drinking water in their communities? Are the river levels impacting these cities? If so, what mitigation efforts are being used to address the challenge? Thank you.
This is Cody Eckhart again. Yeah, I can speak to that in South Louisiana on the Mississippi River. Because of the low flows and the low river level, the salt water starts to intrude up the river farther and farther. We just completed this past week what we call a saltwater sill. Some people call it a sill, some people call it a wedge, some people call it a levee. It's basically an underwater levee. It's at a minus 55 elevation. So as of now, unless the wedge continues to, unless the salt water continues to intrude, that will not affect navigation, but it keeps that salt water from moving up and getting into the drinking water intakes above the lower Mississippi River.
Thank you. Got one more question that was directly to me, and then I'll call on somebody else. But this is from a mayor, and he goes, the Omaha district has a, quote, drought response program manager. What do other areas have for personnel like that where we can reach out directly for assistance?
I can speak from the navigation side of it. We have our stakeholder partners, Lowmart on the lower Mississippi River. You've got REAC on the upper Mississippi River, and they typically, are the channels that will contact, that are in communication with Corps of Engineers on navigation issues.
Okay. I've gotten a request. Oh, I don't want to interrupt somebody.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up. If it's more on the climate side or on the drought side, Molly Wolozin, who is on this call, is works for NIDIS, and this is one of their responsibilities is dealing with drought issues across a larger area. My NOAA colleague, Doug Cluck, I know would be willing to cooperate on the climate side, or often state climatologists of the states along the river could also provide additional information.
Thank you. And Molly just put her email address in the chat. I've gotten a request. Any more questions? If no other questions, I've gotten a request, maybe our cruise lines, if y'all want to make a comment or something on your operations. Shelley, I see you first. Let's go to you.
Okay. So, this comes at a time when a lot of the industry is starting to try to move down, at least have a boat or ship on the lower portion of the Mississippi River. So the challenge, of course, is there. And that has resulted in different responses from the cruise industry as a whole. I believe that Viking is on and American Queen Voyages is on, and I'll let them speak directly to how it has affected their operation. We at American Cruise Lines have changed some of our itineraries. So there is, an added expense. Of course, a guest interruption of their voyage, whatever that may be. And that may be changing a voyage. That may be, in some regards, canceling a voyage. We've been fortunate to not have to cancel any voyages. But for example, voyages that were to terminate in Memphis coming from New Orleans are now terminating in Vicksburg, Mississippi, with motor coaches taking the guest up to complete their stay into Memphis or having flights that depart from Memphis and come back in. So, we're adjusting to this as best we can, but of course the river closure has had a significant impact on the river cruise industry as a whole, just trying to move people around. And so a lot of interruption for guest experience.
Thanks, Shelley. Jethro, I don't know if you're trying to talk, but you're on mute. I can't hear you. Still, I can't hear you. I don't know if anybody else can. No.
Well, while he's figuring out, this is David.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, we obviously have seen here, and we've seen struggles for us. We actually canceled half of up to St. Paul, and we 14-day going back. And we're in the process now of starting up to do the lower Mississippi. Not much different related to where we're going, which speed we're going to be able to do as we're. So it's been quite dramatic. We're doing everything we can for our guests, total refunds and cruise. I'm not going to go direct for the rest of the season, but we do have a plan to be able to offer a quite extraordinary experience for our guests that's going to end up costing us a tremendous amount of money. But we look at the long term, not the short term. And so we are going to make sure that our guests get taken care of, no matter what that costs, and we will move forward with that. But it's been very challenging, quite interesting. I've been on the river since 1995. I've never seen anything like this since 1995, as everyone on the call has. So just understand that Viking is excited about moving forward, and we will do everything we can to satisfy our guests. And we appreciate all the help. This call, by the way, was fantastic for putting this together. We thank you, Mayor, for doing this. And also all the participants from the government. Thank you so much for preparing and keeping us up to speed.
Thanks, David. Jethro, did you get yours fixed?
I think I did. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So Jethro Beck, American Queen Voyages, very similar to what we've just heard from ACL and Viking. We had a number of voyages that were due to start in Memphis or farther north and travel down to New Orleans and back up, that we've had to reroute, as Captain Rhodes mentioned, into the pooling waters so that we had enough depth and fewer obstructions in our itinerary. So there are some voyages where guests have a completely different cruise, to be quite frank. They're not embarking in New Orleans, they're embarking in Louisville or Chattanooga or somewhere up there. So it's had fairly significant impact. We're lucky, American Queen Voyages, we haven't canceled any, just rescheduled the entire rest of it to go with it.
I do have one. How many closed
closures and over 1,000 6 closures in about 45 days if you break the hours down to total restrictions, and that's from wow, July time frame. We had we've been placing restrictions.
Thank you, Captain.
Yes, sir.
Door. or comments from anyone? If not, I want to thank everyone who participated, who are members, and even the